Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing subject pronouns and object pronouns. That's actually not as bad as it sounds. We're really just talking about when to use the word he versus him or I versus me. So let's start with subject pronouns. So subject pronouns are the subjects of verbs. And we've talked about this before. So here we have he hit the ball and she ran and I ate a pie and we found a treasure map. Notice he, she, I, and we, those are all pronouns, and they are all doing the verb. Remember, subjects perform the action. So who does the hitting in the first sentence? He does. Who does the running in the second? She does. So these are all examples of subject pronouns. Some further examples would be I, you, she, he, they, and who. You don't have to know these all intricately. Eventually, when you learn the rule, you'll start to be able to use your ear for whether you should use subject pronouns like I, you, she, and he, or alternatively, object pronouns. So object pronouns are the objects of verbs and prepositions. So remember, objects have actions performed on them. So the basketball hit him. The test confused her. The computer printed out directions for us. My sister aimed the hose at me. So notice the words him, her, us, and me. Those are all pronouns, and they are the objects of the sentence. So those are good examples of object pronouns. More examples of object pronouns. Me, you, him, her, us, them, whom. Notice, by the way, very often ends with an M, him, them, whom, and we'll discuss that in more detail. So why don't we take a look at some basic examples. This first example, the answer to the question was obvious too. Is it I or me? Well, here, who's doing the verb, who's doing the was, that's the answer, is our subject. Well, therefore, I or me has to be our object, and me is our object form. Excuse me. Me is our object form. There's me. And so me is correct for number one. For number two, I cannot believe the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins gave we or us autographs. Well, our subject here is gave. Who did the giving? Well, certainly not we or us. So therefore, the we or us is our object, and our object pronoun here is us. For number three, my brother and I, or me, left for the concert earlier than usual. Well, notice here, my brother and somebody else, that is going to be our subject, our compound subject, by the way. So our subject pronoun is I. I left for the concert. Who did the leaving? I did. Therefore, I is our subject. Number four, Jennifer was selected for the talent show instead of I or me. Well, who was selected? Well, clearly not I or me. Jennifer was selected, so therefore Jennifer is our subject. Therefore, I or me is our object. Me is our object pronoun. Finally, while we were walking down the street, an old man threw a newspaper to we or us. Well, who threw the newspaper? An old man, so the old man is the subject. Therefore, we or us is the object, and in this case, us is our object pronoun. Well, let's move along to some compound subjects and objects. So a lot of the times what you can do with these sentences is if you're not too sure whether to use I or me, you can remove the other pronoun and see which fits. So for example, here we have Denise passed the plate of potatoes to Robert and I or me. Well, why don't we get rid of Robert? So we would say, if you look at this last sentence, Denise passed the plate of potatoes to me. All right, because you wouldn't say to I, you would say to me. So this is an example of actually being able to use your ear to know that me is the object. You don't even have to know that. You can just remove Robert and use your ear. You wouldn't say plate of potatoes to I, you would say plate of potatoes to me. Well, things do get a little bit tougher, but not that tough when we're talking about prepositional objects. So the idea is a pronoun can follow a preposition. When that happens, the pronoun should take the object form. So again, if the pronoun is the object, that is, if a pronoun immediately follows a preposition, it should take the object form. For example, between you and me being the object form, or around him and her, or an at her and me. All of these are in the object form because we have our prepositions between, around, and at. Well, why don't we take a look at an in-format identifying error question to see how these object and subject pronouns can be tested. So here we have, Jessica was aware that a serious rift had occurred between she and me. Well, notice me fits because it's not underlined. The question is she. Well, between is our preposition, therefore she is our prepositional object. However, she is a subject pronoun, so D is our correct answer. It should be an object pronoun, being her. Okay, I realize that seems to be a lot, but if you just think about it, you wouldn't say between she, you would say between her and me. Why don't we take a look at another example? Everyone in the auditorium except Judy and I applauded enthusiastically after the terrible movie. Okay, well, who applauded here? Oh, well, not Judy and I. We didn't applaud. Everyone applauded. Notice, in addition, except is our preposition. We have pronouns immediately following that preposition, except. Therefore, B is our correct answer. It is an error because I is our subject pronoun, when in fact it should be me, our object pronoun. Again, B is our correct answer. Taking a look at another example. The critics' praise did very little to appease you and I after the deadline had passed. Okay, well, who is doing the appeasing? Is it you and I? Are we the subjects? Are we doing the appeasing? No, the critics' praise was doing the appeasing. So the critics' praise is our subject, meaning you and I, or I is our object. So C is in error. C should read you and me. So C is our correct answer. Again, me being our object pronoun. So what you need to remember in general is use the subject form of a pronoun when it's the subject of a verb, and use the object form of a pronoun when it's the object of a verb or immediately following a preposition. Again, really not so bad. Again, if you practice distinguishing between subject and objects, you will be able to see which pronouns fit appropriately. Well, that's the lesson for today. Thanks very much, and we will see you soon.